Hey YouTube. Well, this video will probably be for the people in 100 years, I guess. Whenever the technology has reached such a sustainable point and people work together to such a sustainable point that colonizing another world is not more than likely will happen. So, what do I believe will be the better option, Mars or Venus? There are two options. Obviously, Mars is a smaller planet further away, so it's colder, and it will always be colder. And gravity will be hard to adapt to because it's so light out there, so your bones won't exactly be built for that kind of world. I personally think Venus would be the better option, although it is completely hostile to life now. Well, at least our life, it isn't hostile to all life. So when Earth first formed, and when the first, I guess, organisms started producing oxygen, because we didn't actually have oxygen on Earth to even begin with, there was the overwhelming the overwhelming organism that survived and produced oxygen was fungi. It probably wouldn't be too far-fetched to think that if we were to... I suppose the only reason the fungi existed was because there was water on Earth, and they sort of survived in the ocean. So that's why most organisms have like a percentage of same DNA as fungi. Okay, so where am I going with this? Well, I believe that there are other organisms that live close to volcanic vents, and the only way you could theoretically make Venus livable, because there's so much sulfur dioxide on Venus, it truly is impossible to even imagine anything being able to clean that sort of atmosphere up. Like, it's just too hard to imagine, but not impossible. Okay, so I believe that the easiest solution, I've thought about this, there's two. One is use bioorganisms to basically absorb the sulfur dioxide and convert it into something else. Something that isn't so toxic, doesn't make the atmosphere so heavy, and something we could either reuse as a commodity or use as a fuel source perhaps, or use even as or the planet itself could use. So I think that, yeah, there's organisms that live next to volcanic vents called archaea. They're probably the best bet to, if we were to dump millions of tons of archaea onto Venus, I believe that if the organisms are, if they're as tough as what they supposedly are, then there's a good chance that perhaps Venus itself could be depolluted, that the sulfur dioxide could be cleaned out, and the planet could be potentially harbour life. There's no point trying to look for life on Venus. There is none. There would never be none. It is simply too toxic for any thought of life to exist. I wouldn't even worry about damaging their ecosystem because it doesn't have one. Mars, on the other hand, I believe would be too difficult to colonize. The amount of things you would need to do that, like you would need to crash comets full of water ice onto the planet. You would have to somehow reactivate the core of Mars. Have no idea how that could even happen. Like, I don't think there's any technology man has that could even do that. Theoretically, I guess you could drill something down to the core if you could get something that deep, but nothing we have drills that deep, or even gets close to that. And even if you could, it wouldn't really do anything. It's just too large. And yeah, I just don't think Mars is a viable option for that reason. I think there's just too many factors that there's not enough resources on Mars itself. It got stripped away by the sun's atmosphere. I mean, there are a lot of smart people looking at this stuff, but you're talking about a planet that just doesn't have the resources to sustain life. There isn't enough there. It doesn't have a magnetic shield that protects it from the sun's solar winds. It doesn't have a working core. Yes, Venus is a planet that doesn't rotate, but I think it has more of a chance than Mars. I also believe that tackling the problems that Venus has would tackle the same problems on Earth, and if we could experiment on Earth to fix our own pollution issues up and things like that, and terraform, or I guess you could say, or build new habitat, like trees and rainforests and oceans and things like that. If we could do that on Earth, then we could do that on Venus for sure, and we would have two good planets that humans would be quite sustainable on for the next 1,000 years at least. And I believe is where I would hope to think that humanity goes. I don't know that humanity will even make it to colonizing another world. If we can't work together, there's no chance of us surviving. So, something to think about. All the great hates in the world just don't matter. Not really. Not when you really think about it. Doesn't matter what the history books say sometimes. Sometimes you just have to start anew. Start fresh and go, you know what? I don't have a reason to hate my country neighbour over there. I know they've done bad things, but what good is it to fight them? It won't achieve anything. It won't gain us anything. It will just hurt and cause more pain. And it will put us back more and more years, more and more time, until we realise that the only species that's going to look out for humans, and when I say species, I mean everyone on Earth, so countries don't matter. If we don't look out for each other, there's no chance. So, yeah, peace.